Hey guys, I'm back with Rachel Robinson tonight, and we are going to deep dive into all things Lust in Translation, which is her Navy SEAL contemporary romance novel, and it's a complete standalone. So you can read this book. It's not tied to anything. You don't have to worry about character side arcs or anything. You can dive in and you can have a 100% happily ever after once you finish. So, my first question for you, Rachel, is how different is it writing a contemporary romance from previously you had the mafia romance come out?
So typically I do only write military romance. Like that's my number one genre. Write what you know. I've been married to a Navy SEAL since I was 21. I'm 40 now, so many years. So like that was the advice that was always given to me from like other authors. Like if you write what you know, it always strikes a little bit true. So that's actually easiest for me writing the military romance or even contemporary. The mafia stuff is kind of it's just fun because I can like world play. Like it doesn't have to seem real. It doesn't have to be real. I don't have to like base it on anything. I love world building. So like that's the mafia was the offbeat one. And I have another BDSM that was all another the Dom games, that one was called. Those two are kind of like dark erotic romance, but one-offs. So typically I only write military romance.
So, was the hero in Lust in Translation kind of on par for how you write your heroes, or was he more of a difficult hero to write? Because he had some backstory to his character.
Yeah, I think he's pretty a typical hero that I would write. Some are a little bit more alpha jerky than others. I'm remembering this. I've written 27 books at this point, so it's hard for me to remember like very specific details, but I remember he was kind of a little grumpy, but still like a good guy. So that's pretty standard.
And as far as the romance in this book goes, how would you rate it on Spice in terms of someone who is just, picking it up off the shelf and kind of wants to gauge what this book will be like?
Mm, So it's definitely so I don't write erotic romance. So it is heavy plot with I'm like I call it mild, but like I don't know what I'm comparing it to. In like my range is probably different than a like there's no closed doors. It's very like gritty and raw, the scenes that are in there, but like is it every other chapter? No. Like it's definitely earned. So yeah.
You mentioned just now that your books tend to be more plot heavy. And earlier you said you really like world development. When you sit down to plot out a book, what gets you in the mode to say, this is where I want this world to, begin, and this is how I want it to end?
It really like it depends on the series. Like I said, I write military romance. So like I have an entire series where I created World War III. And so I was like, okay, what? And then like I took three couples through that war essentially, and all three of the main characters were Navy SEALs, a little bit tied together, but a little bit not. Just coming up with the plots for military romance is kind of standard and cliche. It's war, it's deployments, it's that sort of thing, and they each have their own personality, which like drives the story in different directions. So
What's your favorite aspect of the plot in Lust in Translation?
I love like a moment where it's just like you're like, oh, like this is why it's titled this. This is why it like makes sense. And there's a lot of spoilers in this one, like what happens to him like after and how she kind of helps him like overcome what happens to him. And so I think like when he finally accepts her help and is like, okay, this is like not like why she was put in my life, but like it could be, it could be why like they met when, she was much younger. And then, it's kind of it's a second chance romance, I'd say, even though like it wasn't romantic when they first met. So I think it was like that sort of like aha moment when it's like, okay, this has been kind of building my entire life.
So on par with kind of this second chance and how his main arc when I read this book was, well, one, he's kind of a tortured military hero. He has that past, he has the story to get over. But like you said, a big thing for him was accepting help and like all the undertones that come from, an alpha man, military alpha male hero, learning that help is okay,
Yes.
that it doesn't mean something bad.
Right.
But as far as, the development from when they first met to how they end the book, was it always going to be that long story of, them kind of going in and out of each other's lives when you plotted it out?
And I think in general, people, well, you know how the book starts. It's like hard not to spoil anything in this book, but it's like how the book starts. Like, I feel like a lot of people would stay in that kind of relationship that was kind of like it was solid, but it was like not, it wasn't the perfect fit. So I think, the main overarching plot in this is like, just kind of being true to yourself. And it's like, okay, this is what I need to do, even if it's scary, even if I don't want to. I don't know if it's going to work out because Kendall didn't know, it was just sort of like she let go of her past before she knew that things would work out with him, so
Between the two main characters, did you have one that resonated more with you while writing Lost in Translation?
it's hard. So in every single, maybe not my mafia romance, but in every single of my other books, like there are like characteristics or personality traits that like I identify either with myself or like those loved ones around me or whatnot. And the issue that was, the hearing loss, we won't say anything more than that. I have a disease that I have Meniere's disease. And so I'm like almost deaf in my right ear. Like pieces and parts of like myself are wrapped up in the characters, but it wasn't like Kendall I would identify with. It would be like Leo, except I'm not a grumpy alpha jerk.
With the way you describe Leo, and I don't want to say a jerk because he has a very good reason for why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
How do you balance that line of, the broody, silent hero, but not making him so, jerk-like that you don't want to like him?
Yeah, like he can't be redeemed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is a fine line to walk. Like when you're creating like a grumpy alpha male. My book that's coming out this week, 5 dates, like he is amiable, like he is the alpha, but he's like a happy alpha. And it's so much easier that way because there's no like, oh my gosh, we need groveling, groveling, groveling. Like there's none of that. No, it's hard. Like I was in another interview and I have a book set in stone, which was never supposed to be. Steve was never supposed to have a story. He was like a best friend and crazy good. And he was horrible. Like he was just like a horrible, horrible character who was never meant to be a hero. And so like I had my work and he was the main character in Set in Stone because readers demanded this. And so I had to redeem a character that I wrote in a first book that was unredeemable. I was like I don't even know if I can do that. So I will never ever do that again. Like I will be like, okay, you're bad. You can't, just in case you come up later.
It's redeeming characters in contemporary romance is a lot harder because
Yeah.
the lines aren't blurred, especially in like a subgenre like a military romance where you feel like they should have that, they have that ingrained sense of honor and like loyalty and just like respect for certain freedoms. And then you're like, well, how do I make this person? But
Yeah.
toe the line so we like him, but like give you enough to where you're like, but he's not likable when we meet him on page one.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was like I didn't have that trouble with Leo because like I knew his arc going in, but like it was the side character that was just like, oh God, he was like rude to females. I mean, I made him as filthy as I possibly could to like show like how much better my other character was. I was like, I don't even know how I'm gonna do this. People said I did though, but it took a whole book.
In books like military romances, do you pull from personal experiences or from those that being a military or pretty much a career military wife, you've probably
Yeah.
had a lot of personal experiences that you can pull from in your writing. But did any besides the Meniere's pop up in Lost in Translation?
I mean, they all have like similar character traits, and I won't like say no, like no character I've ever like had somebody in mind because there have been ones where I'm like, oh man, you're a lot. Like you're for sure going to be a character in a book. I would never admit to who it was, but yes, some of them have spots in the book just because like I have encountered certain things and like a lot of the facts that are like drizzled in there are real. Some I've made up. You know, I remember at the beginning of my career, my husband was like very nervous, like him taking my book to work and being like, my wife is putting this out. Is this okay? They're like, man, like, no, we're not going to read that. It's fine. So, yeah, there's, but nothing ever like real life, like any sort of tactical scene that I write or any sort of like war or like exchange between like teammates, like I'm just creating that in my head.
So this is a fun question. And it makes me curious. So, for those of us who have read this book, there are some side characters that we've been curious about. Do you have plans for any side characters in Lost in Translation to get their own stories?
So, like, I will never say never because that's what I did with Set in Stone Steve. But Lust in Translation is in a finished series already. So, Lust in Translation almost had you and Never Always. They're all standalones, but like that world, I've moved on from that world. So, it's unlikely that any characters will get their own story.
And I figured you were going to say this, but I had to ask it because I knew someone was going to have me ask. They want to know. So, this is kind of tied to the whole world and not just Lust in Translation. But would you ever consider doing kind of not a spin-off, but loosely tied to where we see other characters in this series or characters in the series pop up in a new series?
Yes. So, like, that is something. So, there are, I think, Leo's boss in Lust in Translation was a character in a previous world. So, there is like trickle down, like here or there. And I did like talk to someone. She's like, I felt like I was like missing out on somebody that I should have known. It's like, you didn't need to know him, but like, yes. He came from, I want to say Bronze Bay, stealing it. The boss of Leo was, or no, Kendall's dad. Kendall's dad. I'm sorry. Trying to keep my facts straight. Came from a different book. So, yes, for sure. Like, there's always that type of stuff. So, not really a spinoff, but like, oh, hey, I recognize you. Yes.
And on the same vein, I also had someone want to ask this when we were originally going to do this live. Would you ever consider second generation characters for a story or a plot?
Like kids, you mean?
Kids getting their
Yeah.
own books.
Like getting their own book?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would. So I've done it once in the Crazy Good series. Legacy is the children from the first book, Crazy Good. So I've done it before. So I would do it again.
I ask that one every time because I feel like we've been in very much of a second generation romance era the past couple years, and there's so many
Yeah.
authors starting their second generations, and I'm like, are we more on like, the third or fourth by now? Because I'm like, some of these have grandparents that have had books, and I'm like,
I know. I'm a little ADHD in the sense that like in my head, like that series is like done. Like I've written the book, like I'm already writing the next book that is completely different. Like I have a hard time like, okay, who's next in this series? Like I'd rather, because I said I like creating like worlds, it's like, okay, what is the next world I'm creating instead of writing in the same one, if that makes sense?
it does.
Yeah.
A little tangent, but this book deals with, I don't want to, it's not a chronic,
Sorry.
but there's
Loss.
veins
It
of
says loss.
loss and impairment. Maybe that's like a chronic impairment.
Yes.
And
Disability. I
this,
mean, that's what it is. Yeah.
how do you tackle having that theme in this book? Because we've had, and I'm trying to remember others, but like we've had a ton of big name authors this year release books with either chronic illness, chronic impairment. A few to come to mind. Well, one is Violet in, the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros.
Okay.
Stacey Thorne had a heroine that was wheelchair bound.
Okay.
And that was in a hockey book. And then another one was Anna Wong in her book, The Striker, the heroine has chronic pain. And they tackle, chronic illness in a way that makes you think, well, this is more prevalent than we want to accept. And this book also, you throw in the way you tackle both sides of their stories that makes a reader cognizant that, you're never going to have your perfect hero in your life. Or, I mean, very rarely, very rarely, maybe I should say that. But how do you balance that when you have, a big topic and area such as this? Because it kind of embodies who they are as a character on some level.
I know, yeah. So I feel like the transformational arc of the person that was like going through it. Like I saw it from the get-go. It was like this was going to be before, and then this is going to be after, and then further down the road. But yeah, it was hard to tackle, and I chose to tackle that just because of like what I was going through at the time. And I was like, this is unexpected. And like you said, like nobody is ever perfect. Nothing is going to be perfect. And a lot of times in romance books, everything wrapped up with a pretty little bow. I think this might be the first book that I wrote that, like had the lingering effects of like a disability. Like at the end, I could have like easily given him, okay, it came back. Like that was the decision that I like made at the end. It was like, okay, is this like, this is him now? Or like, we're going to work through it? I was like, no, I think that that would take away from, kind of what I wanted to convey.
And in Lost in Translation, would you say that area, while it affects Leo a lot, but would you say it almost kind of affects Kendall a little bit more in certain or in different aspects?
Yes. And I think the idea in making her a linguist was that it was not only something that she understood and could help with, it was something she respected. And, like she didn't see less in him because of it, because that was her passion, if that makes sense.
Does.
Yeah.
And so this is a standalone, and I have a few questions about the series as a whole. For someone going into this series, I think so. Hambright did Misfire first. So I came into this series not realizing this was a third book in an interconnected standalone universe.
It's the first in the three. So Misfire is a standalone mafia romance, has nothing to do with this.
So I didn't realize it was in a series. I thought they were both standalones. So for someone coming in, would you say they have to read this book first to grasp the world as it evolves?
No. Like, so what I wanted to do because of world building is I put a seal base in Cape Cod. Cape Cod is this one. I think we have Almost Had You as Alabama. And then, I mean, I just put a seal base wherever I would like to play. And so that's kind of why they're in a series, but they aren't, you don't have to read them in any different order. It's like whatever like tropes you prefer more.
As far as tropes go, Lost in Translation, which ones were your favorite ones to include in this book?
I liked the kind of second chance, like that they had met when she was like younger as a kid, and like Leo was working for her dad at the SEAL base in Florida, and they just like brief interaction. And I loved like it's like, oh, that's right, I introduced that. I introduced two characters a long time ago. Let me come full circle with that. Oh, and I don't think I've written very many second chances. So typically it's like heavy trope. A lot of my more popular ones are Navy SEAL and Virgin, like Navy SEAL single mom, Navy SEAL secret baby. So second chance is kind of like a middle of the road. So that was kind of a fun one.
Second chance for me are always I love to hate them, or no, I hate to love them.
It's a fun.
Either way, because I really just love second chances because you get that good feeling at the end. But I'm also like, but I always know they're going that route. And sometimes I'm like, can't you make them strangers? But
Yeah,
I did like how you did the twist on this one where, they did know each other, but they weren't ever romantically entangled. So it was a different feel for a trope that I feel like second chance is always a very heavy trope. For
right. Like something really bad.
something bad happens or something, horrible happens. Not necessarily like big bad breakups but no, life happened. Whatever drove them apart, and life has been going on however many years in between. So it was nice to kind of get a fresh take on a trope that has really only been done a few ways.
I know. Yeah, like it was like just sort of like a twinkle in my eye because I had remembered they had met, and I was like, oh, that would be fun for the story that I already had the arc. I come up with the plot first. I was like, I want to write this story. And then I'm like, okay, who is going in that story? And so like that is kind of how that one came about.
So, as far as this series go, between the three bases and their locations, which one was your favorite to write?
I take it back. I think all three of these were based in like Cape Cod. Cape Cod was the base, but they all had different, like when they went home, like home was like different for them. And like those stories are based in like home. I mean, all three of them. So Never Always, that one, that's kind of a meet cute. That one is a deep, that's a deep meet cute. He is a felon having to do community service in her Marine lab, and like they hate each other, but like they need each other. So that one was fun only because like he was probably the meanest that I've written, or baddest. I was like, I'd ask my husband, I was like, can you really like still go be a Navy SEAL after like you do this? So that one was fun too.
Navy SEALs. So, you write a lot of Navy SEAL romance. Would you ever branch out into other branches of the military, or have you in the past?
I have not. So the closest I've got, only because like I wouldn't know the terminology, and I'm not sure. I don't remember these books being like heavy in like terminology and like the war aspect. Some of them are, and they require like me to like ask many questions of my husband, like reread the scene sort of thing. So like if it's going to be, so I write dual point of view. All of my books are male and female. So like if I'm writing a male and like he was in the army or something, I wouldn't know if like things were right, and they have to be right if I'm writing like a scene like that. So I don't think I would. The closest I've gotten, I have two bodyguard romances, but I think they were former SEALs, so that doesn't count.
We'll have the same demeanor.
Yes.
For your heroines, so in military romance, you've kind of hinted at it, but we tend to have a subsect of the typical, characteristics that make up the heroine when you pair it with a military alpha male. And some of them you mentioned were like single parent, the virgin hero, someone who needs protecting,
Right.
pull on all those base protector instincts. Lost in Translation was a lot different than all of those
Right.
because of who Kendall was and how she came to be embedded with Leo and the storyline. How is crafting her story for you? And what was the most fun aspects of her character that you had playing around with?
So the fun part with Kendall is she grew up in the lifestyle. Like her dad, actually, I want to say technically it's her stepdad. Like she was a SEAL daughter, let's call it that. So like she knew what the life was about. And I almost think that that's part of the reason, like, I was like, okay, we need to pair Leo with somebody that like we can't have a virgin. We can't have somebody that's not familiar with the military. Like, we need somebody who like knows this lifestyle, knows the consequences, knows the territory that comes along with it, to be able to handle the nuances and like give him the space when he needed the space. So crafting her was fun only because like I was like, okay, this is somebody that like knows it. I don't have to, she doesn't need explaining. She doesn't need like, this was probably her destiny, which is like the cheesiest thing ever. But like she was meant for this lifestyle.
You say cheesy, but I saw it so many times with friends as I grew up who they either didn't go into the military themselves as military siblings or, children, but now they're married into the military because that's what was comfortable. Like that's what they knew.
You knew. Yeah. And I think there is something to that. And there's like like if you knew how many like brothers and fathers and like sons and all that like become Navy SEALs, it's just, it makes sense to me. Now, would I want that for my son? No. Like I can't even think that, of course that's what he wants to be, but like I can't even like, I was like, don't put your mother through this stress twice, please. Please don't. So
right?
I can You're right. Like there is something to that. And like our daughter, even growing up with like that is her role model. Like that is what she's going to look for in a future spouse. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I find it funny. So you said cheesy, but I always find it funny when you say cheesy, thinking about someone who's picking this up that may not have the military connections, because that's
Yeah.
probably
No, what I
that
meant
might be
was
the same
cheesy is destined. Like destined. I don't know if I believe in destined. That's
destiny.
what I find cheesy.
But to people who grew up, close by,
Yeah.
it's very much what we are familiar seeing happen. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in destiny. I do believe there's people, I have friends who are married on my little tangent that I very much now I'm like, I could not see you with anyone else. Maybe for your stress, it would have been better because a lot of my friends are military. So
Right.
I always, when I read these books, I'm like, I should show this to XYZ because I'm like, I'm the only one not, I'm not married. I didn't go into the military
I
aspect.
mean, typically military spouses, they don't want to read this. I don't read this. So I read psychological thrillers. I do not read romance. I write romance, but I think for them, like it just hits too close to
Yeah.
home. I don't know. Not all of them. I've had some military spouses like reach out and be like, this is the most accurate depiction. Thank you so much. Because the other ones drive me up a wall. And then there's other people that are like, I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I have a few friends that I sent it to who they enjoyed it, but they're not married to, they're married to medical professional military, medical personnel. So it's a little bit different. And they always tell me they're like, when you talk to these authors, can't they write like a military doctor? Oh, that would be
Like a romance? That's a good idea.
just
Yeah.
to, because we never see military doctors, I guess. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't, yeah, you would have to tell me because I'm not versed in the military romance. Like if you listed a few military authors, like I might be like, okay, I recognize them. Like I've written in Corinne Michaels, like I wrote in her Salvation series. She did like kind of a world blend. Legacy, which is a book in my first series that used to be a mesh with her world, and then I re-edited it to make it, just mine when the contract was up. So like I know her and she does it well.
I don't know. I would have to go look. I don't read military over everything else. I kind of just pick when
Yeah.
I read the description that looks good. And if it happens to be that, it happens to be that.
Yes.
But I do it in big chunks. So I go at times. And I started with Misfire, which of course was your Mafia book. And then
Yes.
after that one, I was like, well, now I want to see this other one.
Yeah, and they're completely different. Like the people that like started so like my best friend from like childhood, all like Misfire is her favorite book of all time, and she'll be like, so when so and so getting his book, when you know who, if you've read it, and she's just like she will hustle me for that day in and day out. So eventually we'll like just to backtrack, will Misfire get another book? Probably because my best friend is a pain in my ass.
On the topic of Misfire, real quick, I really enjoyed the first few chapters and how you set the stage for what was coming.
Okay. Yeah, I had to think.
He's younger when we meet him, right? It's a prologue, I think.
Is it a prologue?
Is it a prologue?
Oh, his everything is burned down.
Yes,
And yes, in the first chapter.
chapter one.
Is he younger?
Or
I'm not sure. I don't like, is there a time gap there? I don't think so. I think that's like just the beginning of the
or
story.
less jaded. Maybe he's less jaded. That's a better way to say it. He reads younger at first because things haven't happened yet that set him on that.
Actually,
Um,
you're right. Yeah, no, no, no. Like that's when he meets Riley for the first time, and then he gets whisked into the world where he meets Drew. Yes, that did happen when he was younger.
I was like, I thought he
Yeah,
was younger, but I was like, but I read
you
too
were
many
right.
books,
Yeah.
so maybe I was wrong.
Nope, you had it right.
But
I
I
don't
really
remember a prologue though. It was just chapter 1. It should have been a
think
prologue.
think I read it as prologue because of the age difference. Funny
I know.
things in my head. So I have a few questions for things in the works. And of course, us Handbright influencers know kind of what's in the works because we were asked if we wanted to read your upcoming book. But I had a few people want to know about that 5 dates book. And the first one is what can we expect from that book comparatively to your other books?
So 5 Dates is going to be that is a typical military romance that is based in San Diego. He is a new SEAL, so not seasoned, not hardened, not sort of. I mean, it was a purposeful thing. Remember, I told you he was the happy alpha. Like he hadn't been through it yet. So I was like, I need him to be new. They have a personal trainer program come in, and they all get like athletic trainers, and Margot is assigned Tommy. And so it is a bit of like a workplace romance. She's his like athletic trainer. Like happenstance, they happen to be both from Texas, and they both are kind of out of like really bad relationships and not really looking. But this one is different, and it's the most probably insta love book that I've written. Like, here we go back to like me calling destined cheesy, but like maybe they weren't destined for each other, but like their personalities were just like compatible immediately. And that was a hard choice for me, or not a hard choice. Like I knew that that's what it was going to be. You know, like they'd been through enough relationship wise that everything around them is going to be hard, but the relationship will be solid.
Past 5 dates, one of the readers wanted to know in the rest of 2025, what can we expect from you writing wise?
So I am writing a forced proximity right now. It is a Navy SEAL romance, a little bit of a tougher heroine. She is out to set a world record for sailing all the way around the world, and she gets captured by pirates in South Africa. And our hero is the grumpiest hero that I've written to date. Not too grumpy because he needs to be redeemed, but they are doing like a whole new sort of mission where he pretends to get captured so he can go where she's at. So nobody knows he's a SEAL. She doesn't know he's a SEAL. They're stuck there together, miserable and hating each other, but obviously that will change.
For readers who would like to meet you in person, do you have any signings or in-person events scheduled for 2025?
I actually don't yet. I was doing a lot of them and burnt out a little bit. So I've been doing like a lot of these lives lately, but like if something pops up that I'm going to be in the area, like I would do, but nothing on the books yet.
And on the last topic of future plans, for Misfire again, I did have a ton of people want to know this. Yeah, I'm included. I don't want to put pressure, but would you ever consider going back into the Mafia world or loosely tie it to another world or series you've created where we get to see those characters cameo again?
Yes. No, like Misfire 2, or I don't even know. I haven't written it yet, but that is the one that my best friend will demand that gets written. And that will be so that one was a love triangle. And the one that was not selected, without spoiling anything, that will be his story.
I had to ask it. I know I talked about it earlier, but I had to
Yeah.
ask it just because I know someone will get back to me and they'll be like, but I need to know.
It is.
So
It's coming. Yeah. And I think I wrote the ending in a way, which is that is also my fault, like why people are demanding it of me. But like, I was like, I wanted enough, but like not too much that, like he's moved on, he's settled. Is he happy? No, but like Drew took care of business for him back home, so he was kind of at a place of like peace for him. So if that was the end, it could be the end, but it also wasn't because he's angry still. So
my last few questions before we go, I like to ask these for everyone. Was there a book or an author that you read or saw when you were younger that really kind of got you into wanting to be an author?
yes. And the most embarrassing answer ever. So I have that they're no longer published anymore, but I had a 3 book traditionally published series about witches back in, gosh, was it 2005 or 4? It was a very long time ago because I was obsessed with Twilight. So I read Twilight, and literally that is when I started writing books. So Stephanie Meyer, that is, I think that like I've talked to other authors and it's the same for them too.
And so this one will be fun for you, but if you could pick one trope, you could have done it in the past, you could have not done it at all,
Okay.
what would you pick and why for a future book? And I'm gonna go ahead and say it can't be military or neighbor seal that you answer because that's a given.
Like different? Are we talking like what would I love to write or what would I love to read?
Right. It would be what you
Right.
would to write.
So recently I read, I know this is old, but like the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. And that blend of kind of psycho killer and sexy, love it.
I haven't read that one yet.
I mean, it was very twisted. Well, I love to read like the thrillers. So like, okay, I love thrillers. If I could add like romance into the thriller, kind of very similar to that, like love it.
Are there any books that might have recently come out that you're excited to add, to that ever growing to be read list that we always have?
I know. I'm trying to think like nothing that everybody else would be interested in. Like Stephen King, I love a lot. I just ordered a creepy book for my husband because he doesn't read fiction. He reads like awful, awful nonfiction. And it was like putting him to sleep. I was like, the author of Fight Club, I think it's Chuck Palahniuk. But anyways, he came out with another, it's just very twisted. He had it on his nightstand and I was kind of flipping and I was like, oh, maybe I'll read this next.
That question always gets me in trouble because people list books and I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. Let me add it to my list.
Not
That's
today. I'm like, what psycho book is? Oh, I literally, it's right here on his desk. I'm hiding in his office. It's called Shock Induction.
have signings the later half of this year, and I'm like, it's a good thing it's the same group of authors because I can just like do two or three and then like do my two or three spread out.
Right.
But it's not gonna end that way. It never ends with only
I
two.
know. Well, because we're military, I've never been like a collector of like actual books. Like my books take up like having 26 and keeping stock of them take up way too much space. So I'm just like, I'm a Kindle girly.
Well, my last question is, and this one can be any type of teaser, but I always like to end it on kind of a teasing question. If you could tell a reader who is new to you, or maybe they read you a while ago and haven't picked up a book by you in a couple years, where would you suggest they start at and why?
One because there's so many different tropes and everybody has like different preferences, but I think the best taste of like plot heavy, sex wise, character world building would be the Crazy Good series, and that's Crazy Good. So that would be the first one that that's where typically most people start.
Think, did I know what cover, it's the black and gold cover.
Black and Gold, that's Maverick and Windsor, and the letters at the end.
I have not read it, but it's on my list.
Okay.
So I will be reading it at some point. So at some point in time, it will get read. I used to give people estimates, and then I'm like, ooh, I can't do estimates anymore because my 2 weeks is not your 2 weeks. I've learned that real. I say 2 weeks, so that might be July, and that'll be my 2 weeks.
I feel you on that.
But I had fun chatting with you about Lust in Translation and Leo and Kindle and their romance and all the struggles in between. Thank you for joining me and being patient while we got this scheduled and set up. It means a lot that you trusted me to have you on this and to chat about your book. Best of luck coming up with 5 dates. I know it's releasing soon.
Like it's Sunday. Like I should know what day. I've already put it, it's like already ready to go. It's going to be in Kindle Unlimited. So like it's already uploaded.